Welcome to Preparing for AI, the AI podcast for everybody, with your hosts Jimmy Rhodes and me, Matt Cartwright. We explore the human and social impacts of AI, looking at the impact on jobs, AI and sustainability, and most importantly, the urgent need for safe development of AI, governance, and alignment. Disappointment you shouldn't have done. You couldn't have done, you wouldn't have done. The things you did and we could have been happy. What a piteous thing, a hideous thing. Welcome to Preparing for AI with me, Rodney Marsh.
And me, George Best.
And this is the end of episode, no, not episode 2. It's the end of season 2.
It's the start of an episode, I think.
It's the start of an episode and it's the end of season 2 of Preparing for AI, which means coming soon will be season 3 of Preparing for AI. And for people who listen to our special aborted episode, you'll already know this. But if you didn't listen to it, you won't know it. But Jimmy, shall we talk about the aborted episode?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think I had a bit of an empty stomach. And I mean, I normally have a few beers during the episode. I've actually stopped drinking now for a while. But yeah, I basically got pissed.
But it wasn't just that, though. I think you reached a place in your kind of AI journey and maybe your life journey.
Maybe my AI
sort
journey.
of, as the episode went on, I think what I was quite happy with is you kind of came over to my sort of more pessimistic side on AI, but you know, I'm in a more optimistic place, not just with AI, but in general. And I think it was a useful episode, if nothing else, in that we realized that we had kind of, I'm not say taken things as far as we could, but like we'd kind of run out of ideas on that kind of,
with the format.
Yeah, with the format of the podcast, because we'd sort of exhausted a lot of issues and we were like, we don't want to be a news, you know, AI clickbait podcast.
No.
So we decided, for those that didn't listen to that episode, that we're going to do stuff a little bit differently after this week. We're going to move on to having kind of one episode a month where we talk about, not necessarily AI news, but like, you know, the most important stories or the big kind of breakthroughs. And we'll do some kind of news stuff and what we're kind of thinking about AI. And then we'll do one episode a month where we talk about like a much broader issue and something that's interesting to us, where that's kind of religion, politics, economics, healthcare, and it will have an AI angle to it, because our kind of view now is like AI is not a standalone thing. It kind of comes into everything. So we can talk about things we want to talk about, but we will link them back and we'll have a kind of AI thread running through that.
Yeah. And I think we've always kind of done that. We've kind of followed what we want to talk about a little bit, but we've kind of, I think in the past, the episodes have been more specifically focused around AI and something around
and
AI.
We've held ourselves back sometimes from going off, whereas I think we've got from wanted to go and like
explore.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to be a bit more exploratory. Like if people, I guess if what you really like about the podcast is it's like heavy AI focus, then we're going to have a little,
the other one.
Yeah, maybe listen to one of the previous seasons, but it's going to be a little bit less of that. But I think there's still going to be a lot of talk about AI, and like as Matt says, AI is going to be is more and more just becoming part of life now. It's part of everything, and so there will still be an AI theme. We're not changing the name of the podcast necessarily. It's maybe we should change it to Living with AI, I suppose, based on that.
We've already been prepared, or we're not prepared. We're definitely as a society we're not prepared.
I don't think we've
it's here anyway.
Yeah, I don't think we prepared anyone with our first 2 seasons. But
No.
we I mean, maybe we did. Maybe we helped a few people think about it a bit more.
But we still like we said, like we're not going kind of Joe Rogan long format 4 hours episodes. We're not going to go that far off track. We're still going to interview people. Like sometimes we might do an episode that is purely around a kind of particular AI theme. But I think it feels like a kind of natural evolution, because the thing that you guys don't see is most episodes, me and Jimmy talk for 2 hours before the episode about something else that's kind of loosely linked to AI. Then we do the podcast. Then we go and talk for 2 more hours about something that's loosely linked to AI. And we were like, why are we kind of separating these two things out when actually like we always wanted, we always want to talk about the human and social impact. And these are all kind of human and social issues. So this is not a case of we're just going to kind of shoehorn AI into it. No. It's a case of like, we're going to talk about a subject that's linked to AI because everything is, but we're going to explore it in a kind of more natural way rather than feeling like we always need to kind of force it to kind of keep focus on the AI bit. So anyway, we hope that's interesting. There'll still be that one kind of news episode. And like we say, sometimes we'll do different things. We still want to interview some people. So it's not a complete change of direction, but it means we can launch series 3 and we can sex up our logo a little bit. maybe even put our faces on the worker and the robot.
Oh, that's not. I don't think that counts as sexing it up, but
well, one of our
Two
faces will
middle-aged men.
sex it. One of us is very sexy. I'm
Yeah.
just not saying which one.
fair enough.
So anyway, let's talk about. So this is the final episode of season 2, and it is a kind of news roundup, but it is a one kind of headline news roundup, because the thing that we haven't done is talked about GPT-5. And it feels like a perfect end actually to series 2, because GPT-5 is the thing we've all been waiting for arguably 2 years, and it's come along and bit of a damp squib.
It's not like
when it came out. Let's start off. We're talking about the launch, so like it's a couple of weeks ago now from when it launched.
I didn't even know it had come out. Like it certainly wasn't revolutionary. It certainly wasn't AGI. It was less of a news story than when DeepSeek came out and like hit the headlines. I think that was probably deliberate, because on OpenAI's part, I think they might have even said it was.
They've said that they botched it. They've said they botched the launch of it. So I'm not sure if it was deliberate. I mean, they probably tried to pretend it was, and then actually realized they can't pretend. I mean, the problem is, like, it's a bit like the last episode of like Game of Thrones, right? It's like, it doesn't matter what you do, it's never going to live up to the hype. But at the same time, it really felt like it disappointed. I mean, the fact that, like what you just said, you didn't know that it happened. I knew it happened, and I was just sort of like, I'll just kind of play it. And I listened to a few podcasts and read a few things, and I found that, like, my wife was using it on her computer for work, and she was like, oh, this agentic thing, and then she ran it and she was like, oh, this is really rubbish. And it wasn't that it wasn't rubbish, it was kind of that it just didn't feel like it hadn't been launched in a very kind of useful way. Like, I know they kind of have to make this, like, people knew it was going to happen, but it kind of comes out of the blue in a sense. If you're a normal person, you didn't necessarily know it was coming out. If you were in the AI world, like, everyone kind of knew the date was coming out. But I think for a lot of people, it kind of came out. It's like, GPT-5's here, and no one really knew what it was.
Well, the other thing is, there is another reason why it's been a little bit underwhelming as well, which is a bit of a debacle and has caused quite a lot of fuss online. But it has a router in it, doesn't it, as well? So for the benefit of our listeners, unlike GPT 4.5, where you are kind of getting what it says on the tin, you when you're using GPT 4.5 or 4, you get GPT 4.5 or 4, and you get that model. GPT-5 uses what's called a router built into it, where it effectively does a little bit of pre-analysis on your question, and then it decides how much horsepower it needs, essentially, to answer your question. So they have a bunch of models behind it. So I think you've got the GPT-5 Mini, you've got GPT-5 base model, you've got GPT-5 Pro, and then you've got GPT-5 Thinking.
Well, and 4.0 in the other models.
And 4.0 and the other models are there as well.
All the old models.
And so, whereas before you could, to be honest, before it was quite annoying as well, because you had to go on, when you went on ChatGPT, you had to choose between all these models, and it was quite confusing if you're like not an expert in AI and not completely up to speed. And also the naming conventions didn't really make any sense either. Like O3 was better than 4 and stuff like that. But yeah, when you ask 5 a question, it's basically going to be like, is this a hard question or is this an easy question? Do I need to do coding? Do I need to think? Do I need to do reasoning? And it will make its best effort at that, and then it will send it to a model. And so you might get an answer from a, so to speak, inferior model or a superior model, and it might think and it might not, and it might take a long time, and it might come back straight away.
Potentially using 4.0 for everything, and then they put something in that was better routed to 4.
Yeah.
And so it went to 4, and they're like, hang on, it's giving me worse than what it would previously. That's kind of what people were finding early on. I should just add in here as a kind of, not a caveat, but a while ago when Claude 3.7 came out, I actually announced that this is what Claude 3.7 was doing, which is what would kind of be, we'd been told. That wasn't what Claude 3.7 was doing. It wasn't quite the same. We were saying it was choosing whether to use deep thinking or not. Actually, that wasn't the case, that you had to put it on. I think this is the first, certainly of the major models, where they've done this, and I'm not sure actually if it's changed now, but initially, certainly you couldn't choose to kind of override it. So if you were using 5, you couldn't choose to, well, actually, no, I want to make sure it uses 5. It would make the decision, which kind of makes sense because they're trying to, reduce down the amount of
cost. So
well,
their
cost, yeah,
costs.
but also like the speed of the model. So, we've said this before, for a lot of queries, you don't need the top model. If you're going to ask it a question, like, I don't know, you're going to ask it like, who won the FA Cup in 1970? It can use GPT-3. Do you know what I mean? It just needs the most basic model. This is not quite that, but my point is, it's like there is also some logic behind it that it could help the user, but I don't think that's how it was received. And it is probably not the main intention. I don't want to defend OpenAI, but like there is some logic behind it.
I also think that, I mean, I'll be honest. I think the motive for this is not about they want GPT to be as fast as possible or give you the best possible speed. I think that the motive behind it is to save money for them, because you're paying $20 a month, right? If they can run a model that costs a fraction, and in some cases we are talking like I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm sure that GPT-5 Mini versus like GPT-5 Pro thinking is probably costs like a 10th, a 20th what the top model uses. And so for GPT-5, it's really for OpenAI, it's really compelling, because suddenly you're paying them $20 a month and they can be like saving a load of cash in the background, which does make me think like it also, then if that's their motive, then actually it's in their interests to push more and more queries to actually cheaper and cheaper models.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe possibly like going to be a bit of a fine line for them.
And I think actually, like, I'm thinking about it now, I think the $200 model, which is called what's it called? It's not Pro tier, it's called Ultra, whatever.
Something.
Anyway,
yeah.
I think on that tier you could choose to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
So it basically, if you're a pro customer, so you're a kind of paying customer, you previously had been treated like a pro customer. You're now not a pro customer. You're now basically just like someone who's you basically sat in premium economy, whereas you thought you were in business, right? You've got a slightly better headrest and an extra 2 inches of leg room, but you haven't really got much of a different service. I think that's actually like probably a reasonable analogy for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna. I said I would do this before. They don't pay us, unfortunately. I'm gonna shill here.
I'm pretty sure Sam Altman's not going to pay me.
No, well, no,
Ever.
exactly. We're talking about OpenAI. I mean, yeah. So I'm going to give an honourable mention here to something called Abacus AI. I think it's called Chat LLM, which actually already uses routing. So this is something similar to the Mammoth is another one that does something similar. So I've been using this for a while now. Like I cancelled all my subscriptions, these $20 a month to OpenAI, Claude. I think Google's got a similar thing where it's like $20 a month. This one's $10 a month, and it gives you. So the way it works is it gives you credits, and you can actually choose any of the models. So I can choose OpenAI models. I can choose Anthropic models, so I can choose Claude, I can use Google, I can use Grok, which is the Twitter one, isn't it, or X, and I can actually choose. So from the GPT models, I can actually choose exactly which one I want. So I can choose GPT-5 Thinking or GPT-5 Mini. It's up to me. And then it also has some open source models like Kimi K2 and DeepSeek and a bunch of other ones, and it's really cool. So like you pay $10 a month. $10 a month, and what you do is I think it gives you 20,000 credits, and then your chats use up your credits, so you can run out. But even being quite a heavy AI user, I've never run out, so I really like it. It actually gives me more control, and I can choose which models I want. I don't have to switch between models and try different ones. It does lack some of the features, so like I think if you're using GPT, it's a bit more multimodal built into it. This has less of that, although it still does have some of it. But if what you want to do is purely have a chat and have a chat, which is have a conversation with the AI, which is most of what I do, then it works really, really well. And
what's it called?
It's Abacus AI Chat LLM.
So go to Abacus AI Chat LM / preparing for AI for 20% off.
Yeah, we can try and set that up with them.
That.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. I'll drop them a message afterwards.
Before we move on from this section, there's a couple of points that I just had to make on looking at kind of feedback on it, because I think the main thing on the feedback was just people were expecting a kind of revolutionary change, and they got like a step forward, basically. And another analogy that I use is a bit like the iPhone. Like when the first iPhone came out, it was big, and then iPhone 3G, and then the next one was amazing, and then after that it was kind of like, oh well, it just gets a little bit better. It kind of feels like, I don't know, at some point there may be the big leap forward, but maybe people were expecting too much. The other thing was apparently there's a lot of backlash around the personality of the model, and people found it kind of cold, I guess, and like less personable, which is funny because they were previously complaining that it was too sycophantic. So, maybe that's just different people have different opinions, but some people said it was sarcastic or sounded like it was more corporate. And apparently they've already kind of restored, I don't know how they've done this, whether it's restoring kind of access to older models or trying to use the personality of older models. But apparently that's something that OpenAI have addressed. So whether they did that whether they've revealed that they've done that or not, apparently that is something that they've acted on.
It's just a system prompt, isn't it? They've just tweaked the system prompt.
Yeah.
They probably asked GPT-5 how to make it.
How to make a better system.
How to make it more friendly. Yeah.
So I thought, let's just talk a little bit about how it has sort of moved forward technologically. So technological advances of GPT-5 and whether that's compared to GPT-4 or whether that's compared to other models, but how is it actually a kind of step forward? So one of the things that I got down was enhanced context handling. So it's got a much bigger context window, which is, for everybody, actually, if you're using it a lot, this is a really, really big thing because it means it retains its information for a longer period. So you've got kind of longer conversations. You can have more files that it can retain memory on. That means you can do a lot of big projects. I do a lot of this in Claude, that I use projects and have, multiple files in there that it can reference back to and stuff. My understanding with GPT-5 is that it's a leap forward, but I don't know if that's a leap forward for OpenAI because obviously Google Gemini, for example, already had a massive context window. Right?
Oh, Google's got 1 million or something like that. Although that's got caveats because it doesn't always have 1 million automatically depending on what you're doing and all this sort of stuff. I wanted to make a recommendation actually on that, for you. It's up to you, but I do a lot of coding and I was using Cursor before. I'm using Windsurf now because Cursor's sort of blocked stuff from China now. But I think it might be useful for some of the stuff you're doing, even though it's designed for coding. One of the things it's really good for is having a RAG knowledge retrieval thing built into it. And I think, even though it's not its intended purpose, I think with something like Windsurf, because basically you're talking to an LLM and letting it talk to the files that are in a project that you're working on. And it does this thing where it has rules and memories and all sorts of other stuff. I think it might be worth having a look at it for the stuff that you do.
Cool. We should have had this conversation after the podcast, but I thought when you said I thought you were talking to everyone on the podcast. But I guess you are. If anyone on the podcast also does projects, then they might also want to think about that.
Yeah, it's a weird use case for it because it literally is designed. It's an interactive developer environment for writing code, but actually when you're researching something or doing something like that, it works really well as well because of the way it stores files and knowledge and information. Anyway, you can give it a go.
Here's one that you'll like because we talked about this before. It's got reduced hallucinations and improved accuracy. So apparently it's 45% less likely to hallucinate or make factual errors. I think we always like
GPT-5
it
give you that number?
We always like it when models tell us about the percentage. I think now it's funny, isn't it? Because a percentage used to make things credible. When an AI gives you a percentage, it's an immediate red flag to be bullshit. I
don't know what that means.
But it's
45% less likely to.
It hallucinates less. Apparently, let's just leave it at that.
Whatever.
This is quite interesting. So, safe completions and refusal policy. So instead of outright refusing prompts that may be on the edge of its safety guidelines, GPT-5 is trained to provide helpful and safe information while still preventing the sharing of harmful content. So rather than not giving you an answer, it kind of tries to give you an answer within the sort of confines. Now I know sort of real freedom of speech lovers might not like this.
It answers a different question, basically.
It's like a politician. Exactly. It's very good at being diplomatic. And telling you something that wasn't what
I can't help you make a bomb, but have you considered
making a cheesecake instead?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if we convert terrorists into sourdough bread bakers, isn't that a success?
Yeah, absolutely. And
then AI will kill us instead.
Yeah.
Agentic functionality. I guess this is I thought this was the big one, and it feels like it's not really being talked about because maybe it's not that useful, but it has this agent mode, which allows it to autonomously perform tasks like searching the web, using a virtual desktop, accessing Gmail, calendars, etc. I don't.
Does it do that?
Well, that's what I was saying. I
Searching the web is
so my wife used it a little bit.
They all already did that anyway.
My wife used it a little bit, and like what she was using it for was basically, I was like, you don't need it for this. In fact, you don't want it for this. And it did start going off and doing things on
Weird
its own.
things, yeah.
I would say, and like I've got to say in this episode, like neither me or you have. It's not like the two of us have spent the last 2 weeks doing nothing but playing with GPT-5. So maybe we're not best placed to do this episode. But from what I've heard so far, from what I've heard so far, it doesn't feel to me that this is like, it doesn't feel like everyone's talking about, oh wow, it's agentic, I'm using it for this, and it's this solution. So it feels like it's a very small step forward in terms of movement to agentic models, and maybe a way for people to start to like understand a little bit about what might be coming, but it's probably practically not that useful.
Yeah, I think the first time agentic models become useful is when they're built into your phone or your computer or your whatever. Like that's when all that stuff takes off. I don't know if we said that before already, but it's when you get your next phone and it just like does all this stuff for you, and it'll become like second nature.
Yeah,
book me a whatever, get me a flight, book me a hotel, arrange a.
Whereas now I think you're still talking it through a lot. It can't, like you talked about this, about how long it can kind of work on its own and how long does it need before it's prompted. I think at the moment, the kind of agentic mode, you still need to be there.
Oh yeah,
like prompting it the whole way.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. I mean, I do.
It's a showcase at the moment for what it will do in the future.
Yeah, I do stuff that's very close to that because I develop with it, and like people call it vibe coding, but you have to supervise it pretty closely. Like it's sort of, it can work on its own for 5-10 minutes at a time max.
The next one was actually going to be about coding, so it's much better at coding, right? I don't know if have you used it for coding.
So it's a bit tricky because what happens with coding is like whenever a new model comes out, because the way that Windsurf works and the way that these IDEs work, like Cursor, it takes them a while to integrate it into their system, so you can use it almost straight away. And actually on Windsurf and Cursor they were offering GPT-5 completely for free when it first came out, and I think that's because they need to get people to use it and gather feedback to actually get it to work properly with their system. Because the way they I mean, I won't go into too much detail on this, but the difference between using something like Cursor or Windsurf and doing coding with AI is that AI has access to these tools. And so the AI, I mean, a tool is web search, right? So when they say GPT-5 can do web search, effectively what they've done in the background is they've given it access to a tool, I'm doing in quotes, I don't know why, that allows it to go and search the web. So it'll be a tool where it can pass off a request and it can say, I need to search the web for this, that, and the other. The tool will pass information back to it, and then it can like interpret that and come back to you. Similar with image generation, actually. But when you're using a agentic type interactive developer environment, when you're coding, it's got access to all these different tools. So an example of a tool would be it needs to go and like write lines of code, or it needs to go and do an edit on a file. And so one of the tools it has access to is to be able to go and do a targeted edit on a file, because it would be really inefficient to like look at a piece of code that's like 300 or 400 lines long and rewrite all of that code every single time. And so it has a tool that allows it to read a small part of a file, or find some content within a file, or make a targeted edit to a file. That's just one example. And when you get new models that come out, they don't know how to use these tools properly. And so it takes a little while, especially as these IDEs get more sophisticated, it takes them a little while to basically tune everything to work properly. And so it's a really long-winded way of saying I basically use Claude for serious coding still, or Gemini 2.5.
Is GPT? I mean, the simplest question, and actually, I don't think most of our listeners probably care about what is the best model, but is it ahead of, Claude Opus 4 at coding?
I think it's neck and neck.
Really?
I think it's neck
Okay.
and neck. I think on benchmarks, GPT-5 does, the top GPT-5 model does slightly better. But in terms of like real world applications, in terms of who's using what most for coding, I think more people are still using Claude. And it's for some of the reasons I just explained.
Yeah.
It's also because it's familiarity, and they're
sort of
basically
think, though,
neck and neck.
even if it's neck and neck or slightly ahead, if it hasn't blown it out the water, that's still pretty amazing, because Claude's next model or Gemini's next model will inevitably be ahead again, and it feels like that they've chosen to concentrate on that. I'm not saying it's not important, but it does feel like it's not the focus of your ChatGPT at the moment. So maybe we see more differentiation, and that's the way it's headed. The other one I was going to talk about just finally is like the sort of multimodality of it. I mean, it could always create, text and images and stuff. And obviously, that's one of the advantages that ChatGPT has had for a while is, and one of the reasons why I do still use it is because, its image creation has been the best, I think, to use for a while. Not necessarily in terms of like what the image looks like, but more the fact that it can pretty accurately, from a very small prompt, create what you want. And I've got some on my screen. So since we've used GPT-5, and this is a big step up from 4, where not only can it spell, but if you put in the like people, it does really. I mean, I don't know about for a kind of sort of photorealistic image, but when you're certainly doing like the picture we're looking at is basically, it sounds a bit weird, but a dragon on a horseback in Inner Mongolia, and there's a massive screen that says T-cell vaccines, and it's got a picture of Tucker Carlson interviewing Dr. Patrick, what's his name? Anyway, Dr. Patrick something. And the picture is a kind of cartoon picture of them, and it's incredibly realistic. I think that off a very, very short prompt, it's now able to really, really accurately create images. It just feels like it's a big upgrade in terms of the multimodality. Like it's not like a groundbreaking change. It's just an iteration, but it's got it to a level now that feels like the image creation, static images is proper top notch now. So we just finished this episode off, just talk a little bit about what kind of makes it unique, and then also like the reaction now when we're sort of a couple of weeks later, which I think has changed a little bit. I mean, just on what makes it unique, I think just to kind of summarize, the agentic capability is the thing that I think, when it was released was the kind of difference maker. And as I've said, like I'm not convinced that it is groundbreaking in the sense that like everyone's going to use it and it's just going to sort of take over and do stuff for them. But it is the first of those models that has kind of showcased what agentic could look like. So that is a big step forward. And the way that it routes things, again, we've kind of said, well, a lot of people have kind of criticized that, but again, it is a step forward. Whatever the reason for it, the financial reason is still a justifiable reason. Like a lot of these frontier developers, like we said, the $20 a month package, if it was GPT-5, I'm pretty sure they're losing money on most of those subscriptions at the cost that, per token of GPT-5. So, it is a move forward. I mean, one of the interesting things, like, because you were saying on, you use it through what is essentially an API. I'm not sure if people actually understand what an API is. I mean, maybe could you explain just very briefly?
Yeah. So instead of like chatting with ChatGPT directly, like if you have access to an API, which is it's a programming interface, then it allows you to mimic all of that, do exactly the same thing, but you get more control over it, I guess. So like, for example, ChatGPT has its own system prompt built in. You can't like inject your own system prompt, but like with APIs you can do some of that. I mean, you can do some of this with like your things like custom GPTs and things like that, but APIs allow you to do this, and they're actually designed, they're mostly designed for kind of like enterprise apps and things like that. So if you were to make your own app that used AI, which is what a lot of apps are actually that use AI, they're a thin wrapper over something like ChatGPT, and they'll use an API in the background. The other difference with APIs, the huge difference, is that you pay per token usage. So like a typical model might cost, I don't know, $5 per million input tokens and $15 per million output tokens for quite an expensive one.
A token, like, just to say as well, a token like for words, a token might be like 3 or 4 words, generally, depending on how long they are, but like as a basic rule. Is that reasonable?
No, tokens are like part of words. So a word's more than a token.
Oh, sorry,
usually.
a word
yeah,
is
other way
yeah.
around.
Sorry, a word is 3 or 4 tokens. Sorry.
Yeah, something like that. Like it depends. A token can be a full stop or a part of a word.
Depends how long a word is, but
yeah, but like 1 million tokens would typically be like 500,000 plus words. So it's a lot, but yeah, you're paying for what you use rather than giving a $20 a month flat fee and then you can use it as much as you want.
The point I was going to make was just that if you get the API, you can then choose the model. So when we talk about, it automatically doing this is when you're using GPT through the kind of chatgpt.com or the app interface. So it does have the ability to be able to, choose the model, and maybe they'll change that, or maybe our listeners have all got $200 a month subscriptions and then they'll wonder why we're telling them this.
I mean, they're definitely trying to save a bunch of cash by. And don't get me wrong, I'm being cynical because they're a corporation.
That is why they're doing it, right? That is the main reason.
It's the main reason, but it also saves on power. It saves the environmental damage from your search. It saves a lot of other things as well. So it's not necessarily all bad.
The other couple of things. So configurable personality. So I said before about how they've updated the kind of personalities as a result of feedback, and apparently you can now customize the tone. I'm not sure how you do that, but it almost like your kind of own system prompt. So you can have it. I think you could always do that within sort of projects and within chats, but once you ran out of memory, obviously it wouldn't be able to do that. So apparently now you can customize it. The final one I
feel like that's something we could all benefit from.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Maybe not me. I don't need it.
No,
I've got the perfect personality, but
yeah, I'll give you some feedback later.
The final one which we talked about, was the context window. So I actually just found a reference to it. So the context window is 256,000 tokens. So apparently, which is a major differentiator, even though that's less than Google, right?
It's a lot. I think Google's is more. I don't know what Claude's
it's apparently
is.
An entire novel.
Yeah,
Claude's was never as high as Google, so Google was definitely Gemini was the biggest context.
Yeah, I thought the standard last generation was 128K.
So it's double.
So it's double that. I mean, Google have already had 1 million, and they said they can do 10 million. I think.
Yeah. All right, so let's finish off. Reactions. So I think that the reason I wanted to include this, I heard a great comment by let me think, it's Is it Morovitz? I used to talk about him a lot, and then I stopped reading his Substack because it made me too depressed, because he's one of those realist, pragmatist people that all think we're going to die. But anyway, that's an aside. He made a really good comment.
What was his reaction then?
Well, it was quite a good comment.
Sounds gripping.
He said it was the anti-DeepSeek. And his point was that with DeepSeek, like, it came out with this, this is going to change the world. And, it was so much. I mean, we did 2 emergency episodes on it. It was so much kind of hype around it. And don't get me wrong, like it was big, and it's, we know loads of people around us who use it all the time. I think in China, it has been absolutely revolutionary, but it was seen as like this massive leap forward. And actually, it kind of didn't live up to the hype, because you realize, well, it's actually not better than other models. It's just cheaper, and that kind of didn't matter. I think
it was better for about a week or something.
Yeah. But I think ChatGPT's 5 has done the opposite. Like, it came out and people were like, is that it? But actually, as people have used it and had a much more nuanced understanding of it, like, they've realized, like, okay, it may only be a step forward, but it is better. I mean, I think, like, it is the best model at the moment. It will change again soon, but it has been a leap forward. Like we said, the agentic thing is not that impressive, but it's still impressive that it exists, right?
Yeah.
I did notice something with Copilot, actually, where it's integrated with Copilot, where I'd been trying to do something that didn't work, and I noticed, it has this ChatGPT feature. You can put ChatGPT-5 on, put it on, and used it, and it was able to basically do what I wanted in terms of putting a document together. And I was like, that's not mind-blowing, but this is really useful, and other models couldn't do it. So I think there has been a difference in that. It does feel like, people are starting to see that, because maybe now that this kind of ink has dried on it, people are no longer worried about the hype. And actually, when they use it, they're like, yeah, actually, this is really good. But it hasn't blown people away. And I think, like, we shouldn't escape the fact that GPT-5 was going to be this groundbreaking thing. It wasn't. Like, it just wasn't.
I don't think that we will see anything groundbreaking in terms. If you're just talking about models that are just getting better and better and
Yeah.
better the way they are now. I think we said this a while ago.
I think with large language models, we won't see something groundbreaking. We'll see iterative. If they
Yeah.
find a new architecture, like all bets are off. But with large language models, it's going to be iterative, right?
Yeah, and even with a new architecture, it depends what it does. Like if you're at the moment, there's nothing to distinguish between the best models. Like you can use any of them; they're all going to give you really pretty good answers. If you're doing like top level research, you'll notice a difference. If you're doing coding, you'll notice a difference. Those are the kinds of people that will notice a difference right now. So yeah, so like in terms of the general public's reaction to the next best model, it doesn't really make much difference. I think what will make a difference is when we properly get those agentic models and they're available to everybody, and you start to get AI that like. I mean, it's a bit like the stuff that I'm doing. Again, to go back to it, the stuff I'm doing with coding, I'm always amazed by it all the time because it's literally just writing code and building an application for me. That's like agentic AI. And obviously for everybody else in their day job, that's going to be an AI where it becomes your PA. It's your personal assistant. It's next to you all the time, like doing stuff for you, alongside you, working with you, like helping you do your job. And then doing that in your personal life as well. That's when we'll notice. That's when people will be like, "Oh, that's the next big leap." I don't know when that comes.
No, I mean, I hope it's far away, but it probably isn't. Yeah. The final thing, just on like just sort of picking up some of the sort of feedback in the last few days and the last week or so, was this apparently the thinking mode and the way that it thinks. So there was confusion early on about its thinking mode, and now apparently the kind of feedback is the way that it shows its chain of thought, which is basically the way that you understand the model's reasoning and therefore are able to build trust in like how it has got to a complex answer. That's another thing that apparently, as people have used a model more, it's not that chain of thought, it's not that being able to see the justification is something new. I mean, for example, like QN, which is the QN's Alibaba, right? Yeah, in China, which I use quite a lot. That has a reasoning mode, and it goes through like in real detail every step. DeepSeek had a thinking mode. It seems to be a big thing in China, but it feels like the feedback that I'm seeing anyway is that this kind of chain of thought is actually you can see the logic, and as people understand how it thinks, that's where people have become, and I'm talking here kind of experts, not just like normal people, are like, wow, actually like the way that it's thinking is different. It's better than other models. So
do you know what? I keep going back to this, but I actually use for most like daily stuff, the chain of thought stuff where it's giving you its thinking, it's kind of like irrelevant. You don't necessarily look at it all the time, but actually again, when you're coding, when it's like doing its thinking before it starts writing stuff, I can immediately see. I quite often stop it because I can see it's going off on the wrong track. So it's actually really helpful being able to see its thinking, because you're like, oh, and maybe this is something that everyone could use it more for. It like generally, if you're just asking it questions, it's not really a big deal. But definitely with coding, I'll be like, can you do this for me? And I can see it goes off at some tangent, and I'll just be like, stop, no, you need to you need to go in this direction instead.
I don't look at it that often, but it just reminded me of an example, and I sent this to you ages ago. So this was using QN or Tongyi, which is QN's kind of interface. So QN's a model, Tongyi is the kind of app and the kind of user interface on that model in China. This was sometime last year. I couldn't remember which teams were left in the FA Cup. So it was like the quarterfinals, I think. And I wanted to know who was left in the FA Cup. And I asked it, which teams are left in the FA Cup? And I'd put deep thinking mode on. And it went into this, basically, it got itself tied up in all these knots. And I could see, as I watched its thought process, what it was doing. It started answering the question, then it went, maybe he's talking about the FA Cup in another year. But if it's that year, then Man United won it. But that's already happened. And then it kind of had this existential crisis. And it was really interesting to watch the thinking mode, to see it have this, like I say, like literally to see it have a breakdown. And it came up with like, well, the answer's this if it's this. And I was like, no, I just want to know who's left now. And it was like, because its training data had stopped, but it wasn't necessarily doing a search, it couldn't understand when this so my point with that is like the thinking mode, even though we've had it for a while, like the thinking mode, you've been able to see how it thinks in a kind of negative way. I haven't seen this so much with GPT-5, but it feels like what people are saying is that they're watching it and they're understanding the logic, and it's making them trust the answers more, and it's making it trust the logic that it works in. So, yeah. So final words on it. Should everyone rush out and get a $200 a month OpenAI license?
No.
I mean, they shouldn't.
I don't know why anyone would do that.
Well, they're giving $200 a month to Sam Altman, if nothing else. But no, I agree. They shouldn't do that. If they've already got ChatGPT, should they switch to another model?
Yeah, Chat LLM, Abacus AI.
It's not a model.
$10 a month.
Yeah.
Bargain.
With 20% goes to me and Jimmy.
Yeah.
If we can get them to give us a code, which is unlikely.
I'm going to email them.
And final question, is it the best model out there?
Probably.
Yeah, I think the fact that you answer it like that kind of sums all this up. It's probably the best model. Are we that excited about it? Not really. Is it iteratively better than others? Yeah. Will something else be better in 2 months' time? Probably.
Yeah.
So disappointing, but actually still a big leap forward. And if you've got GPT or you like GPT, probably no reason to change and use anything else.
I'm looking forward to Google Pro 3.0.
I am. And I should just end series 2 by reminding everyone that Sam Altman is a dick. And yeah, that's the end of...
Should we turn over a new leaf with season 3?
Did I say episode 2 or series 2?
You said season, I think.
Season, okay.
Season.
Sounds
Shall we
better.
turn over a new leaf with season 3 and like be nice to Sam Altman?
No.
Or at least like...
I think we'll talk about him less.
Not mention him.
But no,
much.
I won't.
Okay.
I think that's my... Essentially, that's my...
We're going to talk about Gary, aren't we?
Yeah, but my personality is I don't like Sam Altman and I'm a conspiracy theorist. Yours is you're a drunk.
I'm feeling really
and
optimistic.
an optimist.
Yeah,
I'm feeling optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm feeling, as we head into series 3, I'm feeling much more optimistic about life because I'm not thinking so much about all the existential threats to the world. But I'm
Are you
also...
all right? Are you feeling a bit poorly?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Okay.
Feeling pretty good.
You're not coming down with something?
No, I'm not. Anyway, we said we'd finish this episode. So, thanks for listening to season 2. And we'll see you on the other side for season 3.
Listen to the song.
A little bit disappointed, but ultimately pretty good. 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 A little bit disappointed, A little bit disappointing, but ultimately pretty good.